Hello. Recently, I've gone into ADOFAI modding, mainly due to how much role slop there are nowadays that I cannot keep up. So in this video, I will show how to set up an environment to create mods for ADOFAI using the Unity editor, as well as an introduction to the Unity package that I wasted like 4 days making to help with creating mods. Before we start, I would like to point out that cheat mods will not be condoned in any way. It is absolutely forbidden, so you better not make them or crackthrough will show up in your house uninvited at 3 AM and send you to the gulag. Unfortunately, you will still have to write code, so I highly suggest that you learn C# first, and if you have a massive skill issue in coding, then just click off and go back to playing the game. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin. To start modding, we will need to first install some necessary application that will help us lose probably even more brain cells than we already have. The most important one is of course going to be the Unity editor. To install it, we will need to first install Unity Hub, which can be installed from this link on the screen. Once Unity Hub is installed, we need to first pinpoint what version of Unity editor ADOFAI was developed in. Currently, it is the version 2022 something. However, you can see this for yourself by right-clicking on the game executable and looking at the detail tab of properties. It should say what Unity version the game was built in under product version, and if it doesn't, then you can back it up. After pinpointing, we can open Unity Hub. You will now have to sign up with your rights by creating a Unity account if you haven't already. Then head over to the Installs tab on the right. Click on Install Editor in the top left and we should see some Unity editor versions for us to choose from. Since the version we need won't be there most of the time, we will need to go to the Archive tab and click on Download Archive to find the editor version we need. Once we've located the version of Unity editor we're looking for, just click the install button and it should redirect you to Unity Hub and we can install the editor. Now we need to install an IDE to write our scripts as well as complaints to devs. Two of the most popular IDEs for Unity C# scripting I've heard of is Visual Studio and Writer. It's fully up to you what you choose. I personally use Visual Studio, and if you also decide to choose Visual Studio, then make sure to include the game development with Unity option in your build, and also be prepared to be attacked by Writer users. Finally, we will also need to install Git before doing anything in Unity, and we will need to install a decompiler like dnspy or ilspy to peek into the game's code to understand how things work, and then probably pass out from trying to comprehend it. After installing all the necessary applications, we can now promptly start our downfall by creating a Unity project. There are two ways we can do this. The first way is by using the Unity project I've already made, which can be downloaded on my GitHub for all you lazy people out there. To install it, go to the release page of my GitHub repository ADOFAI Mod Development UP and install the project zip, then extract it. Do avoid directly downloading the source because there are things you probably won't need since the source is for my own personal use. Afterwards, open the project in Unity Hub by clicking in the top right of the Projects tab, add project from disk, and select the project folder we downloaded. Open the project and let Unity set it up. After a bit, it should flag that there's an error and ask if you want to enter safe mode. Ignore the warning as it's not really an error, cause we will fix it once we load in. Once the project finishes loading, the Thunderkit panel should appear. If it doesn't, then make sure you have Git installed, then try it again. Now, head over to Thunderkit settings and import ADOFAI's path. Then click Import. This is very important. Let Thunderkit and Unity handle the rest and just do what Unity tells us to do when important, such as restarting the editor. After importing, the error should disappear. If it doesn't, then you can leave a comment or something, I don't know. Now, the second way is by creating a completely new Unity project. There's not much difference between doing it this way or using my pre-made Unity project. You just gotta manually import the packages if you decide to do it this way. To start, click New Project instead of Add in the top right of the Projects tab. Select the editor version that ADOFAI was built in. That would be 2022 blah 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 in our case. Choose the 3D options using the built-in render pipeline. Name the project and set the path to whatever and click Create. Once the project is created, open the Package Manager by clicking Windows and choose Package Manager from the drop-down. We will need to first install Thunderkit by clicking the plus icon in the top left of the Package Manager, then click Add Package from Git URL, and input the Git link to install Thunderkit. This is why we needed to install Git, by the way. If the installation fails, make sure you have a secure internet connection as well as having Git installed. Once Thunderkit finishes installing, import the game, then add my ADOFAI Modding Helper package using the same method, and we are done setting up. The two Git links to the packages can be found in their respective repository in the README section. If your Unity hates you and refuses to fetch the packages via Git for some reason, like a friend of mine, then another option to download these packages is to download the source of the package. Head to the package repository that you want to download. In our case, that'd be Thunderkit and ADOFAI Modding Helper. Choose the Thunderkit version you want to use. I'm gonna go with 9.1.1 and download source zip. If the repository doesn't have any releases like ADOFAI Modding Helper currently, then just click the code button and download the zip. You can also clone it, but for this video I'll be downloading both packages as zip. Here I have a completely new Unity project, as you can see. After downloading and extracting the packages, it's time for us to import them. For Thunderkit, you'll have to place a folder inside the packages folder in the project root. Then name the folder specifically so. Focus the Unity editor afterwards and it should start importing Thunderkit. If the Thunderkit panel shows up after importing, we've succeeded. Import the game via Thunderkit. If Unity asks you to update any scripts, feel free to update or not, it doesn't really change much. Watch out for one funny thing though. While importing the game with this method, it will ask you to assign the executable again and restart the editor. Just do what it asks, then you can import ADOFAI Modding Helper. You can place this package, unlike Thunderkit, anywhere you want. Although I like to put it inside a plugins folder inside assets, which also come with the pre-made project by the way, it's good practice that you place Unity packages inside the packages folder like how we did with Thunderkit. Only add third-party stuff inside the plugins folder if the thing itself isn't a Unity package. The downside of this is that whenever you need to update a package, you'd have to manually do so by repeating the same process rather than clicking a button once. With the project set up, we can now start creating mods. Head inside the ADOFAI mods folder or any folder of your choice to house all of your mods, then right-click, ADOFAI Modding Helper, and create a mod template. First, fill in the mod name. If you want a unique ID, feel free to do so. For now, take both UMM and Babinex compatibility. I will explain later what that means, and we can also optionally include a scenes folder as well as a template. Lastly, feel free to choose what folders you want to generate. For example, I will be making a lot of prefabs, adding custom textures and using videos, so I will be including the prefabs, texture 2D folders, and an additional videos folder. Then click create. This will automate everything and set up a mod for us to work on. Very amazing. I'd like to now go through the generated scripts briefly, but before I do that, I'd like to quickly mention the Unity asset assembly definition. This file has the .asmdef extension and is needed for compilation since it tells Unity to treat every script within the same folder and subfolders of the assembly definition as one assembly. This file also controls what references the scripts will have, so whenever you need a specific assembly from ADOFAI, just add them here. With that out of the way, we will need to now open our IDE. Just click on any scripts, Unity should automatically launch the solution in either Visual Studio or Writer, and you should see your project in the Solution Explorer. If double-clicking on a script doesn't do anything, then this could mean that your Unity project doesn't have the editor package for your chosen IDE. Make sure you have the package installed by checking in the package list. If the package isn't present, download it by going into the Unity registry, search the name of your IDE, and install the editor. Now try opening a script once more. If it still doesn't open despite having the package, you can try manually opening the solution file, which should be automatically generated by the IDE package and found in the root of your Unity project. If the file isn't there, you can regenerate it by going to Edit, Preferences, External Tools, then clicking Regenerate Project Files. This option should appear once your chosen IDE's editor package is properly installed. Speaking of the solution file, I'd like to go quickly over what it is. This solution file ending in .sln is essentially your workspace. It doesn't contain your source code itself, but instead organizes one or more subprojects that make up your Unity codebase. When you open the .sln file in your IDE, you're opening this workspace that links all of your Unity-related projects together. Unity automatically generates one .csproj file for each assembly definition or internal compilation unit. Each mod template has its own root assembly definition, which means every mod is its own assembly and, by extension, its own .csproj inside the solution. This lets us edit multiple mods in the same Unity project while keeping their code completely separate and cleanly organized. When you're ready to build, we can use Thunderkit to compile only the chosen assembly, ensuring that each mod is packaged independently without touching others. More on that later. Final note before I go through the generated scripts. Normally, to load mods in ADOFAI, we use Unity Mod Manager to do so. This is called a mod loader. Wow, crazy, I know. And you can actually use other mod loaders for ADOFAI. And so I've designed this modding environment so that we have the option to create mod that is compatible with another mod loader called abomination. This is particularly useful because of one plugin that is, in my opinion, rather crucial when developing mods. It's not required by any means, but would help you tremendously to not go insane. I will talk about this later in the video, now that we know what abomination is and what the compatibility options mean when we first create our mod. Alright, let's go through the generated scripts starting at the beginning, our main folder. If you choose to support both UMM and abomination, you'll see two subfolders inside, abomination, UMM. Each of these contain their own entry point code, because the two mod loaders work differently. For UMM, the entry point is inside the startup class, specifically in the load function. I stole this class along with the reflection class, which was originally written by Toogood, the guy behind popular mods like Magic Shape Multiplier. I only fixed like one line of code here, so credits go to him. For abomination, things works a little differently. You give your main class a special attribute to mark it as a plugin, and abomination will use the awake method as the entry point. The same goes for the settings class, although for this class, both kinda share the same structure. Now, you might be asking, wait, if both sets of code exist in the same project, how does the compiler know which one to actually use? That's where scripting defined symbols come in. You can find them in project settings, player, and then scroll down a little bit. In your code, you can use the #if directive followed by a symbol. The compiler will only include the code inside that block if the symbol is currently defined. The ADOFAI Modding Helper makes switching between UMM and abomination easy by providing two ready-to-use symbols. So, if you want a chunk of code to only run for one specific mod loader, just wrap it like this. This way, you can keep both implementations in the same project without the two interfering with one another. With the entry point and setting scripts out of the way, let's talk about the patching, the actual magic of a mod. To manipulate in-game methods during runtime, we use a library called Harmony to patch methods and manipulate them to our will. I've written a massive commenter block inside the example patch file, which could give you a small overview of what's possible, but good luck reading that thing. I highly recommend reading the official Harmony documentation though. Oh, and despite the abomination mod loader using a slightly different version of Harmony, the syntaxes are identical, so use the syntax that UMM's Harmony wants, and it will still work when compiled for abomination. If it doesn't, then you're on your own. That will be everything I will be covering regarding scripting. The rest, you have to figure it out yourself. If you guys want me to create an in-depth guide on scripting, then feel free to let me know. Now that we have the scripting part over, let's try to compile our project into an ADOFAI mod. Our helper will be Thunderkit, which will help us compile our scripts and bundle our assets. Before we attempt to compile our project, however, I will explain a few important details and prerequisites that we will have to do. First, we will need to set up ADOFAI Runner, which is a tool that's part of ADOFAI Modding Helper, by either clicking the gear icon in the top left or by going to Tools, ADOFAI Modding Helper, ADOFAI Runner, Settings. Head over to the Unity Mod Manager tab first and assign the path to the mods folder as well as to the executable of ADOFAI. Then, in the General tab, make sure your pipeline and mod info is included. Let's now go through what the pipeline and mod info is, starting with mod info. This is a Unity asset from ADOFAI Modding Helper that lets you define before compiling the information of the mod. During compilation, this asset will be read and then generate the mod info for your mod automatically without needing to manually do so. Up next, we have the Thunderkit pipeline. The compilation of Thunderkit is made of two parts, the pipeline and the manifest. Let's go through the manifest first because it's more important. At the top, we have the identity. This thing is pretty much useless since it is used for Thunderstore and we want nothing to do with it, so feel free to just ignore it. Then we have the assembly definitions. Here we can add all of the assembly definitions that have been made in the mod project to compile them. We can also optionally add a path to tell Thunderkit where to compile to after compiling to the default path. So add an element, then drag and drop our assembly definition into the field. Lastly, we have the asset bundles. Asset bundles are, well, bundles that hold your assets. For example, if we create a new element, give it a file name, make sure it ends in .bundle by the way, and add one asset element and drag our asset folder inside. Then if we have anything, such as some images anywhere inside the asset folder, it will be compiled into an asset bundle named according to what we gave it. This feature will allow us to store many of our mods assets such as images and prefabs, which can be then loaded via scripting. And just like the assembly definitions, we can also tell Thunderkit to bundle into a specific folder if needed. Now that we've looked at the manifest, we can have a look at the pipeline. A Thunderkit pipeline is like a list of instructions for Thunderkit to execute. For it to work, we first need to give it a manifest. The reason is that a pipeline is, like previously said, just a set of instructions. It doesn't actually know what to work with while executing the instructions. Therefore, we need to give it a manifest, basically the material for the pipeline to use. ADOFAI Modding Helper should have already linked the manifest for us. Let's go through each instructions I've defined. The first two is a recursive delete instructions, one to delete all files in the folder that assemblies get compiled to, and the other for the folder that contains asset bundles. Then, we need to stage the manifest files. I'm gonna be honest, I've got no clue what this thing really does, but keep it, seems important. Finally, the last two are what actually compiles. First, we have the stage assemblies instruction. This is used to compile the assemblies, and the stage asset bundles instruction. This is used to bundle our assets, if you couldn't guess already. Both of these read the manifest that we defined and compile accordingly. Additionally, it is important that the build target matches what platform you're targeting. For example, use standalone Linux 64 for Linux users, and standalone Windows 64 for Windows user. Otherwise, it will just explode and do this. Finally, all we have to do now is add our mod into ADOFAI Runner by going into the Settings, General tab, and add it in the mod list, if it's not already there. Give it the pipeline and mod info. This list is also automatically populated during the mod template creation process, so we don't actually need to do it manually every time. Before I boot up ADOFAI, I'm gonna show that I currently have no mods installed. And if everything is set up correctly, press run and watch the magic unfold. Once ADOFAI boots up, we should see our new mod in the list with a button to say Hello World. If we check our mods folder, our mod should also be in there alongside all the files generated. By the way, there's this option to include a PDB file in the build while compiling. Make sure to use it during testing since it allows the game to report exactly what file and at what line caused the error. We are now pretty much done. However, I would also like to show how to set up BebNX and the really awesome super duper cool plugin I mentioned earlier. To install the BebNX mod loader for ADOFAI, I would recommend that we clone the ADOFAI game first. Just copy and paste the ADOFAI folder somewhere and name it something like BebNX ADOFAI. Then, download the BebNX mod loader, link can be found in the description. I recommend as of the time of making this video BebNX 5, feel free to download 6 or higher if those are stable. Drag and drop every file inside the zip into the game's root directory. Launch the game once to generate some important folders. Now, the plugin I've been glazing is Unity Explorer, and to install it, go to the Unity Explorer GitHub download page, link also in the description by the way, and make sure you download the plugin Mono version for BebNX 5 or 6 depending on what you have. We choose Mono because ADOFAI was built via Mono and not IL2CPP. Finally, drag and drop the plugin inside the plugins folder of BebNX and launch the game. Now we have an extremely versatile and useful tool for debugging, breaking, and learning how the game works during runtime. With Unity Explorer installed, we also need to set up ADOFAI Modding Helper so that it can also compile to BebNX for us to debug via Unity Explorer. First, set up the BebNX paths inside ADOFAI Runner. Just do it exactly how we did for Unity Mod Manager. Afterwards, we also need to import BebNX assemblies to reference and work with. If you chose to set up the project using my pre-made Unity project, then BebNX should already be imported inside the project in the plugins folder. However, if you chose the second method, then you need to first install the BebNX assemblies on the GitHub. Drag BebNX.dll and all of the assemblies that start with Mono into a folder inside the Unity project. Finally, give your mod's assembly definition a reference to the BebNX assembly, and we are now ready to develop for BebNX. I now need to explain a bit regarding the mod info since this is a bit more complicated. BebNX mod info is meant to be hard-coded inside scripts rather than being data-driven like UMM. Therefore, to dynamically update the mod info during compiling, I had to resort to manually editing the C# file before compilation. That would be this file. So we would need to give the mod info the path to the C# file that houses our BebNX mod info. And make sure you don't change any of these fields' name, otherwise it will not work. Lastly, to compile, switch to BebNX first, then click Run. Although we can't really confirm yet if our mod has successfully been compiled, we can do so by using Unity Explorer search function. We can look for our class to determine if our mods work fine by going to the object search, type in our mod name, and wow, our mod is present. We have now reached the end of this video, and congratulations if you've endured this far. If there's anything you don't understand, please feel free to leave a comment. Finally, I would like to give a few people who've helped me tremendously so far a shout out. First, I would like to give a massive thanks to Too Good. He was the person who told me about Unity Explorer, as well as thanks to his immaculate code, so I was able to learn a lot from them. Next, I would like to express my utmost gratitude towards Xhausen. He's the one that's been meticulously testing everything I've done, as well as being an absolute goat of a friend. Thank you for your service, and make sure to check out his channel and his banger charts. And finally, I'd like to thank Crackthrough and the other devs of ADOFAI for answering my questions regarding the game here and there, as well as everyone else that have been supporting me thus far. Thank you all so much for the support, and happy modding ADOFAI!